Hey everyone. Within this week's discussion video, you'll find a presentation that examines just a portion of the life of William J. Levitt. Levitt was an American businessman who, almost more than anyone, was responsible for revolutionizing the housing industry. During his time, Levitt would help coin the word suburbia. Levitt would be born to Abraham and Pauline Levitt in Brooklyn, New York in 1907. And William's father had stopped actually going to school at the age of 10, but continued to study throughout his life, which eventually culminated in him being accepted to and attending New York University's law school. William's father would eventually create a real estate firm that was quite successful before World War II, but after the conflict kicked off and the housing market came to a standstill, it was difficult for the business to go on as materials and resources were being allocated to the war effort. After the war, William would begin to anticipate the housing shortage that would follow the conflict, and with his father and brother on board, they began to focus on this issue. Levitt and Sons would be born, and the secret to their success was essentially their streamlined construction process. Never before had homes been constructed in such a streamlined way. The use of non-union workers also allowed Levitt and Sons to speed up the processes that had previously taken longer because of union regulations. An example of this would be allowing spray paint to be used in houses when compared to the brushes that the unions actually required their painters to use. They wouldn't allow spray paint. This really had never been used before, and the war had essentially created a void in the housing market, and Levitt and Sons took advantage of this in a huge way. The Levitt and Sons workers would build a large number of homes at the same time at the same location, with specialized workers moving from home to home as soon as their job in each of the homes was done. And this way the process was much different than a traditional assembly line, but it was also still much different than what any of their competitors were doing, building just one home at a time. At the start of the company, they were only really renting out their houses, but soon after they realized they could make a large profit by selling them, and eventually when they came out with houses you could buy a new ranch-style home for $7,990. Eventually, William would end up running the business himself as his father retired and his brother was bought out. One of the biggest negative factors that would end up forcing William Levitt to sell the business was actually a series of civil rights suits. Originally, Levitt and Sons would only sell their homes to white Americans, but through the FHA and federal assistance to veterans, the federal government was essentially funding these discriminatory communities because those are federally funded mortgage programs. In 1968, William Levitt would sell Levitt and Sons to the International Telephone and Telegraph Corporation for $92 million. The rest of Levitt's life was somewhat miserable, and he would end up dying in January 28th, 1994. Levitt and Sons began as one of the most promising businesses in America, but William Levitt unfortunately made poor choices and paid the price for it. Still, though, according to the National Housing Hall of Fame, except for the man who invented nails, no one has had a greater effect on home building in America than William J. Levitt. Thanks for taking the time to view my video, and best of luck to everyone in the spring term.